Stuff right now.
Yeah, man, I am calm.
You know? I can't see that on the screen, but that's okay.
That's right. You won't see it for a minute, but you'll see it after I cut and paste.
I see a photograph of a cat in the background. Is that yours?
On the screen itself?
Or just the picture behind you?
Oh, yeah, no, actually, it's not.
We have 3 donkeys and 2 cats, so animals are a big part of my life. Huge.
Cool. Okay, let's see. Oh, I love this. Pretty.
That was me at the start of lockdown whenever I was slim doing a lot of walking in the country.
Well, it's so good. I kind of don't want to let go of it. Yeah.
Let it go. It's available if people want to catch it. Let's go.
Let's just listen a little bit to the sax solo.
It's Derek Doc O'Connor from Dublin, who's not that well known as a jazz musician, but he's the closest thing to Brecker I've met live. He's wonderful.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Thank you.
Nice. Beautiful. I'm going to I'm going to just roll down here because here's the names, but you already said them, but still. Is it Cian Boylan?
Cian Boylan from Dublin, and he's got the major recording studio in Ireland. He owns Camden Studios in Dublin, so he would produce an awful lot of really, really big rock and pop stuff for people like Glenn Hansard and Paul Brady and Ronan Keating and different things like that.
He's really a great piano player too. Beautiful.
He is a great piano player, because I think sometimes we have to realize that, of course, whether it's jazz or whether it's rock or pop or whether it's singer-songwriter, we can't unhear what we hear. And part of the socialization of jazz musicians over the years has been such that some embrace a different kind of thing, you know. So Cian has had a very open ear. Derek Doc O'Connor then from Dublin on saxophone.
Right.
And he's been he's been my best friend since we first met whenever he was 17 and I was 26. I'm now 56. We did the Commitments World Tour together, which was a big band in Ireland. There was a film made about it way back 30 years ago. And we slept in the bunk above each other for about 4 years. We're still best friends, and we still talk every day. And then that was Marty McCluskey, who's Simon McBride's drummer. Some of your fans might be fans of Simon McBride. Simon McBride's in the next line of a dynasty to Gary Moore and some of the great Rory Gallagher, some of the great guitar players from here. He's PRS's European endorsee, quite an amazing rock guitar player. And the bass player is a guy called Dave Redmond, who works a lot with Seamus Blake and Bill Crothers. The world is a smaller place, everybody. And
sure is.
We have to embrace that. And we in Ireland, which of course, for those of you who have watched John Wayne and Maura O'Hara and think, oh, there's Ireland, O'Hara, and we put a feather on our nose and we punch each other and then we have a pint, we love each other. We've come on a wee bit since those days. And, we've embraced all the music of the world, and jazz has a really special part for us all. And I'm very proud to play a part in that and to be a servant of the music that we all love, and a servant to you as a result of that, all of you.
Yeah, well, I just want to say that I came up with this idea a few weeks ago. I'm kind of gathering it together, what exactly to do with it. But I have these little stickers that I made. So this one I was working on yesterday. Art is the tie that unites the planet. But today I'm dedicating this to you. This one, I have about 6 of these. All it takes is one human.
I really, really believe that with all my heart, Cathy. I really, really believe that with all my heart. All it takes is one human. It's been like that the whole way through history, and I think the other thing that we have to do is lead by example, and many have gone before us. And there's a really famous musician from here, guy who passed away 7 or 8 years ago now, called Henry McCulloch, and he was the guitar player with a band called Wings, which was one of Paul McCartney's bands after the Beatles. And my wife used to be a really senior radio producer, and she interviewed him for a show before he died. And after giving the whole history of being the guitarist on Jesus Christ Superstar and working with Wings and things like that, and playing with other musicians in Ireland and putting Ireland on the map, and she I think he went out with Janis Joplin as well. And I remember she told me, she came back and she was very emotional, and she said to me, "Do you know what Henry said?" And I said, "No." And he said, all he really wants to do is throw his stick on the boney, which is a bonfire we have. We call it the boney at home here. All he wants to do is throw his stick on the bonfire. And I think if we all try and just throw our stick in the bonfire, the world will be a better place.
Great. I love that. Beautiful. I knew there was a reason why I wanted to talk to you. Because we think alike. Oh, that's really beautiful. Very, very nice. So, ladies and gentlemen, I didn't properly introduce Linley Hamilton. It's Linley, right? Is that correct?
Linley, yes, it's Linley. It's a lovely name. It sounds Chinese. I actually don't know where it is, but I remember growing up and thinking my mum and dad did me a terrible disservice because I was bullied because of my name, and they were saying, "Oh no, why couldn't I just be called John or Mark?" But of course, whenever the internet came in, Linley was a great name, because I just go to the beach, and if anybody says, you need to get your domain name, I said, no. I'm the only Linley Hamilton in the world. I'll just wait. I'm linleyhamilton.com. Linley Hamilton. Are you not worried that somebody else is called Linley Hamilton? No, I'm not. So it's really, really great. Thank you.
It's a great name. Yeah. I know that feeling, actually, because Cathy Segal-Garcia, that was kind of an unusual name. Cathy Segal, though, I knew some other Cathy Segals, strangely enough. But the whole thing put together. So, okay, so you have done a lot of stuff, and you don't look that old. So I'm thinking you have really worked hard and dedicatedly over your life to create stuff. And so this is going to be a good conversation. But you played trumpet when you were young, right?
Yeah, very young.
Yeah.
About 8 or 9. And I started in the school system, which I guess a lot of the kids do, It's not New Orleans, it's not LA, it's not, it's not anywhere else, it's Northern Ireland. So We started in a pedestrian kind of school system. We have a brass band thing, not like your marching bands over there, but much more regimented and orchestral and conducted and contesting, I guess, So I came through that system and I came through school. But my drawback at the time was I was quite a gifted sports person.
Oh.
So I used to be involved in rowing at quite a high level whenever I was very, very young. Oh. So the way the timetable worked, it prevented me from going into a normal, conventional music education system where there was Saturday morning orchestras and there was after school orchestras, because I was competing at sport. So I kind of went round and bypassed the normal system. Yeah. And fell accidentally into jazz with an old big band of guys who were in their 70s, and I was 14 or 15, and I had no fear, as most kids of 14 or 15 don't. So I took all the solos because they were afraid to take solos, and I ended up having another experience of playing kind of jazz and swing music and Jimmy Lally arrangements. For anybody who's ever heard of Jimmy Lally, arrangements from 1929, 30s, or whatever. And I had that experience. So by the time I was 17 or 18, I was well set in comparison to the other people here. And therefore, the opportunities came my way that other people wouldn't have. And I took my time then to close the gap on real musicians, if you want, and develop myself in such a way that I was almost ready to have a career then in my mid-20s,
Yeah, yeah. And did you ever leave Ireland or, live somewhere else?
Well, I lived in the UK for a few years. I was a civil engineer for my first few years. I did that. So I did a road and a bridge job and a couple of really things I was really excited by. I was really into that kind of stuff. And then I came back because the biggest job that we'd ever really had, I think, as an engineering thing, apart from the outside road system, was a thing called a flood wall. So it was a reinforced concrete flood wall. It was 2 miles long. And I know whenever we look at LA, and 2 miles, man, that's nothing. That's our car parking lot, But in Ireland, 2 miles is that's really big. But so I worked on that for 3 years. And then whenever that happened, I got the call to do the Commitments World Tour. And then I left civil engineering and became a musician since then. But there's an advantage in living in a small population centre. For those of you who don't know or maybe aren't familiar, the population of all of Ireland is 2 streets in LA. It's 5.5 million, For the whole of Ireland, the whole of Northern Ireland is just over 1.5 million. So we have a lot of green fields and houses that are sort of peppered, and you need binoculars to see your next door neighbour. But it works really, really well. And it means that obviously if you're moving into a specialism, whether it's sport or music or writing or anything else, you have a chance fairly early to be exposed at a high level. And then you obviously develop your skills there to fall into place. And I guess I've just followed that path,
Yeah, yeah. I saw that on the bio that I copied, your last record was with, let's see, was it Adam Nussbaum and
Adam Nussbaum, Mark Egan? Yeah.
Yeah. And somebody else too. Who was it?
Well, the sax player, obviously, and the keyboard player in that last video, Cian Boylan and Derek Doc O'Connor from Dublin. Ireland.
Okay.
So it's a quintet, and we did a lovely record called For the Record, and it was pretty lit. And I have to say, I'm an educator. So for those of you who don't know, I'm a doctor of jazz. And I lecture at university, and passing on the information to try and inspire the next generation and keeping the jazz alive is something that's very important to me. I'm a servant. I'm also a radio broadcaster, and I'm not a critic. So I don't put on records and say, yeah, he split a note in the ninth bar. He's a bum. Get the guy off the radio.
He's a bum.
I'm not that kind of guy. I'm not the kind of guy. I'm a worshipper of those who fulfill the music in such a wonderful way and to entertain us and to change our lives. Because I know that the fans are as committed to the music as the musicians,
Yeah.
So I'm a celebrator of those people, and I'm a platform provider for them, And I think that's something that has been a real pleasure for me.
Yeah. That's really wonderful. I guess all that you just said drives you. I mean, that's your.
Yeah, well, I'm driven, and I have a tutor who I've known for 30 years. Because I'm a university lecturer, I'm sure you can guess that's a really demanding job, you know?
Yeah.
And I have an awful lot of students. I was marking performances today and yesterday, and have you ever heard of Alan Holdsworth, everybody? I met the reincarnation of Alan Holdsworth.
That's so funny, man.
I had to check his birthday, and I said, when were you born? Because I was checking he wasn't born the same day that Alan Holdsworth died. He was so like him. He was only 18. And I floated back, and I walked the car. I don't remember how I got home. I have a 2-hour car journey. I don't know how I got home because I was just so emotionally wrought by this monster talent. And I know there's so much I can do for him through radio, through connections I have in America and across the world, through festivals, through focusing him on set lists, through maybe sponsoring towards his recordings and different things like that. So I'm buzzing, and I'm thinking about him now, and I feel like almost a serial killer. You know, I'm going to put his photograph on my wall, and I'm going to connect him to Adam Nussbaum. Make that happen. Contact that festival in Germany, and you know, it's I'm buzzing because I know I can change his life, and I want to.
Wow. Yeah, that's really, that's amazing. I love that. That's pretty electrified. And, you know, not everybody can do that or thinks about that, you know.
Well, I can, because my career in a small population center has made me not an expert, but have a strong understanding of a number of areas. Whereas if you're going to LA and you're a session trumpet player and you're really that good, you probably don't even have time to eat, you know, because everybody wants you for records, whether it's a big band thing or a jazz orchestra thing or it's your own thing or a session thing for Paul Simon or whatever it happens to be, or the next cat that's coming along. Whereas if you're in Ireland, even if you are that good, which we're not, or otherwise we'd be living in LA, it's nice and warm over there. You know, we have to use our performance strengths, develop a portfolio of income streams from the kind of thing I do: broadcasting, lecturing, teaching, mentoring, sponsoring, and I have my own venue as well at home. So it's one of those things where it's a holistic commitment. Yeah, and I've tried to teach myself over the decades not to be jealous of those guys who've only done one of those things and who are so much better than me at what they do. I'm in their service. So rather than me thinking, I wish they weren't better than me, I'm thinking, I'm so excited. How can I platform them? How can I make people see how magical their commitment to the music is, their emotional connection with the music, their technique, and this thing that we're really lucky in jazz? Because guys, I know we're so lucky that sometimes we forget. First recording of jazz was only 104 years ago. When you check out 104 years of classical music, and anybody tell me that classical music has progressed at the same stage as jazz, you listen to the library still used the saxophones and the clarinets and trombones mimicking the horses and the cattle, and you think about Brecker and Brad Meldau and, you know, Charlie Porter, my favorite trumpet player in the minute. You listen to those guys now and you tell me there's any connection to the library. You go back to the classical, any period of classical last 500 years, and you try and find 104 years of a connection, you say, yeah, I can see why there's so much. The difference between Brecker and Library Stable Blues is the same as the difference between Chopin and, you know, Mendelssohn. No! We are special. We're special.
I love it. I love it. You know, that's I mean, I know that and I agree with it, of course. And the last 2 years that I've been doing this show, it just, that's why I keep doing it. It never ceases to amaze me. What you're saying is true. And we are all over the planet, and we are probably making the planet turn.
We are. However, there are an element of us because the progress has been so fast and because it's so split, and we think of, you know, neoclassical, we think of fusion, and of course we know in the humblest way, because many of you may not realize that James Matume passed away yesterday. And James Matume was part of Miles's Electric period and was part of a very famous conversation with Stanley Crouch, the jazz critic, who was a neoclassicist who was involved in developing the Lincoln Center and a big supporter of Wynton Marsalis. of course, is another marvelous champion of our music, and they were involved in the bitter debate about Miles, turning his butt to the beautiful and things like that, of course. So we have this kind of tension sometimes because people think that we're moving away from the tribe, and we have to be forgiving, and we have to be embracing, and we have to realize this massive word that has driven jazz for 104 years, and that is socialization. And this approach where we can't unhear what we've listened to. And it's not bad to be impressed by folk music or classical music or some other electronica or funk or whatever floats your boat. It's not a bad thing. You can bring your characteristics to it, and we can keep pushing the boundaries. And I think that's something to celebrate rather than to denigrate.
I think so too. A few years ago, there was a lot of, for some reason, there was a lot of comments like jazz was dead, and I was like, what? That's ridiculous. Jazz is always growing. Jazz is dead? No, maybe you like a particular style of jazz that, isn't having a life right now, like a new life, but
well, I have really strong opinions on this, Cathy. I'm sure you've probably twigged that already in the first 25 minutes that we've met. I have strong opinions about a lot of things. I have strong opinions about this. Social media, the internet, Facebook. If somebody said to me, who's my favorite trumpet player alive at the moment is a guy called Charlie Porter. I don't know if everybody knows him or not. Charlie's really spectacular because he's annihilated the complex technicalities that make trumpet a really hard instrument. So therefore, that's now gone, and he has a total flexibility in his lip flexibilities and things like that, so he can do whatever he hears in his head, which is ridiculous what he hears in his head. And you're listening to these people, but you can also connect with them on Facebook, on Instagram. You can check out the videos. You can send them a message. Hi, Charlie, as I did. Hi, Charlie. Can I sponsor your next album? Can I put some money forward? You can send me a signed copy and a T-shirt or your nearest hat or your mute or whatever to sort of help. You can be part of their gang, your team. And instead of just going to holiday, think, let's go on holiday to Germany and let's lie on the beach and let's check out that big museum in Hoppenheim. You can actually go and meet your heroes on Facebook and your social media. Say, hi, Charlie, I see you're in Germany on the 9th of May. I have tickets to your gig. We'll hang out. I'll get you a pint and whatever. And how's it going? And how's your dog? Because I see you talking about your dog a lot on Facebook. Do you know what I mean, folks? It's the world's a smaller place. We can close the gap. We can be part of a community and we can support and we can champion. And here's the really massive thing, Cathy, that because musicians are so engrossed in what they do, they don't realize this. But because I'm a radio presenter, I realize this. Because I'm an educator, I realize this. It's not just the musicians who are important. It's the audience. People like you, people like your listeners here tonight, they're tuning in. They could be tuning into American football, or they could be tuning into whatever. They're tuning in from all over the world. They're tuning in because they love the music and they're committed to the music, and they see an ambassador in you, and they're hoping to hear what I have to say because it's liable to be different from something else. We are a small community and we can connect. And if I have Adam Nussbaum, Mark Egan, Mark Egan was Matheny's first bass player. Adam Nussbaum, everybody knows who Adam Nussbaum was, one of the great drummers of jazz history. They're the drum and bass player in my album band from last album and the next album, which I'm recording at the start of May. Where these are really, really, really normal guys who like to. I have donkeys. They like to feed my donkeys. They contact me every say, how are the donkeys? I'm looking forward to, what should I do? Should I bring carrots or whatever happens to be? We'll have that all for you. These are normal people. They want to be part of a community. They want to know you. They're as interested in you as we are in them. And that, I think we're a stronger place as a result of that. And I think jazz is very much alive. Not only is it alive, we can be part of other people's lives. And I'm inviting everybody here to be part of my life, whether it's as an educator, whether it's somebody who wants to send me a message, whether it's somebody who wants to listen to my radio show, whether it's somebody who listens to my records or whatever, or come to my venue if you're in Ireland, because I know a lot of Americans like to say they're in Ireland, because there's only 4 Americans I've ever met who don't have a granny that was from Dublin or Roscommon. Do you know my granny from Roscommon? She was called O'Shaughnessy. You must have met her. She died in 1841. No, I'm If you want to come, my wife and I have this lovely house, and you can stay here. We've got a 40-seater venue, and we have.
Wow, I'm coming. I'll be there, man. I will definitely be there.
Come on, baby. We had Ari Howling and Seamus Dick, Jim Beard and John Harrington, Steely Dan, and all these lovely people playing here. And whatever part of our life, I am a servant to our community, and I think everybody should feel the same way.
Yeah, me too. I really do. Okay, I don't know too many people in Ireland. I do know a flute player who used to live there, who I think moved to Brazil, named Red.
Oh, Red's a really great friend of mine.
Really?
Yeah.
My husband and I, when we went on a late honeymoon, we stayed in his house in Dublin.
Oh, Red O'Sullivan. His house was on TV.
His what?
His house was on TV.
It was?
A TV show, because he was a bachelor kind of thing at the time. And he's moved to Brazil, you're right. He moved for Followed Love. And they decided to come in and do a makeover. Red O'Sullivan.
Oh, I can't wait to tell my husband that, because
Red
that was an experience staying there.
Red used to be Louis Stewart's best friend. Louis Stewart was our most famous export as a jazz musician, a great jazz.
Oh God, is that funny, man? That is so
Louis
cool.
Louis Stewart played with George Shearing, among others, and Stephen Grappelli. So Red was his understudy, and Red was a PR guy, wonderful guy, Red O'Sullivan.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah.
That's funny. I can't wait to tell my husband that.
Yeah.
And then I actually I had been going to England a bunch, because an old friend of mine was Andy McIntosh. Do you know his name?
I think so.
So he was an incredible alto player, and his dad, Ken McIntosh, was kind of like on the UK TV circuit, in the older days. So I'll have to share a record with you that I have a band from the UK on, and it's fun. And actually, I invited Norma Winstone to sing on the record with me, and that was really beautiful, because she's so beautiful.
She is.
Yeah. But that's so funny. I can't wait to tell my husband that. So let's see. So let's talk about your educational area, because obviously that's a big, solid, committed area for you.
Yeah, it's big. It's big. Well, as I alluded to earlier, I didn't study music at school. I played in school bands and brass bands and jazz bands, and I was gigging a lot, but I wasn't studying the theory. Yeah. I was an engineer, and I didn't realize that you could even have a career in music in Ireland. I thought you had to be part of an orchestra or whatever.
Yeah.
My educational part followed my career. We have a big recording industry here. Even after I did the Commitments World Tour, I was 27 or something. So from then on, I started to work with Van Morrison, Paul Brady, and different people like that. And, I ended up getting a lot of opportunities to record and gig. But my first music qualification of any kind was whenever I was in my early 40s, and I did a master's in jazz performance.
Yeah.
And I followed that with a PhD in jazz performance. And then I became a doctor of jazz and a university lecturer. And transcription analysis and forward planning of holistic improvisation, and looking at how to use tension devices and how they are now released, because obviously we're continuously expanding about that, substitutions and different things like that. So that's become a big part of my musical educational thing. I now lecture on a university degree, which is a general music degree, but there are jazz musicians, some really exceptional, but a lot of singer-songwriters. And because of my work with Van, Paul Brady, Foy Vance, who are big singer-songwriters back in Ireland, that's an area that I'm really, really interested in.
Is that style of music like what I think of singer-songwriter is usually acoustic rock or something? Oh, yeah. Okay, good.
Leonard Cohen, Tom Waits, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Bonnie Raitt and different people like that.
Yeah.
Johnny Mitchell. Well, we have some shockingly good. It's unreal, the standard coming through. My wife and I, my wife's called Maggie, and we live in Maggie's farm. How democratic is that, gentlemen?
That is.
No, let that be lesson to you all. So we live in Maggie's farm, Magys, because obviously Bob Dylan killed it for the rest of us. Because if you Google Maggie's farm, Maggie's, the first 730 billion references are to him. So we had to change the spelling to MAGYSARM.co.uk. And we have a 40-seater venue, and the two things that we do there are gigs. So like recently, as I say, we had Seamus Blake and Bill Crowder, and we've got Peter Bernstein and Larry Goldings and Bill Stewart playing there in April, and quite a lot
of man, that's cool.
Yeah, quite a lot of significant, people, Kevin Hayes, different things coming to play, and they stay. And my wife's a vegetarian cook, and she bakes cakes, and they don't want to leave, and they please say, can we just cancel her? Can we please just move in? And we say, no, leave and go and do your other gigs. Get out. But they're kind of ruined, and we have an audience that we have our members of the farm kind of thing. So we offer them the first places, and some of them don't know they were living, they're coming to these gigs, and the dream for all people who are fans of music is that, instead of going to the big theater and putting the binoculars on and kind of seeing this little white speck with a red hat, and you think, oh yeah, that's your man Jim Beard, the keyboard player from Steely Dan. Okay, yeah. And then they go backstage, and you go and get your car. We say no, because we value the fans of the music as much as the musicians, because the musicians need the music and need the fans, and because the musicians have been spoiled living in their bubble, and they have lost sometimes the context for why they're doing what they're doing. And why they're doing what they're doing is because they are servants of the music. So therefore, the fans of the music are who they're working for. So we have a house where we put the musicians up in a lovely music room with 2,000 vinyl and 3,500 CDs and as much gin or whiskey or whatever they want to drink, which we serve them. And the punters arrive and they park in different car parks, and they come into the kitchen, and my wife makes some sort of lentil stew and different things like that, and we give them drinks and mulled wine and all. And then she makes a special speech, and then we walk them across to the venue, and then I go up and get the guys and say, right guys, we're starting. And then as they do the gig, and to this intimate 40-seater where you breathe and you're spoiling the solo, so it's really that kind of intense feeling, and afterwards everybody meets the band and they all drink and say, hi Jim Beard, I saw you in Steely Dan in LA, and I saw you there whenever I was in holiday in New York and Germany. I've followed all my life. So yeah, what do you do? I'm an accountant. Oh my God, that's really interesting. Tell us about that. Well, I do people. It's the most incredible thing, and we just look at each other at the end of the night every time and think, this is what it's about. This is what it's about. Because music's about communication. Jazz is about love. How many of us have listened to music and it's made us cry because it's just been either so incredibly good that we think, how did that happen? Or it's been so incredibly beautiful with this thing called dynamic contouring, where people are changing the dynamic. They're making the tension of the jazz louder, and they're softening it with a lower dynamic, and they're softening that with vibrato or whatever it is. And you're just looking and thinking, I can feel the tension, I can feel the release, and being part of that. And you're in the presence of these great musicians who are doing this, and all they want to know is, can we feed the donkeys? Tell us about the mountain at the back of the house. Can we go for a walk? Will you take us for a walk? Because they don't really want to practice 18 hours a day and then gig and live and just go to sleep and wake up. They want to see what we do. They're as fascinated by what we do in our lives as we are about what they do. So we are one. And the more that we become one, the better. And as an educationalist, I'm trying to instill that with my students, because as a broadcaster, educationist, performer, recording artist, engineer and venue manager or owner or whatever you want to call it, and manager of these young singer-songwriters, I see the bigger picture, that we can't do it without each other, and therefore we are equally as valuable. And I think that's a fantastic message for us all to take home. And for those of you who are sitting watching this, and you're sitting here watching your TV, and there's maybe the NFL in the background and your dog's barking and you're not sure what to do, just remember, you're as valuable as Bill Crothers or Seamus Blake or Michael Brecker or whatever. Here's that. You keep the wheel turning. We love you as much as you love us.
That's so cool. Okay, this is time for my sticker. All it takes is one human. I love it. It's always tied in. That's really wonderful. Have you written a book?
No, I haven't written a book. My wife's just written a book about a year in lockdown at the farm. She used to be a BBC music editor for radio.
Yeah.
And she retired a couple of years ago. And she said, I want to write a book. And I said, well, everybody wants to write a book whenever they retire, but you might take up golf or bowls or
You did not say that.
No, I'm only joking. No, but she wrote a book called Mountain Notes, which will be an app, which will be on Amazon in a few days, whatever, called Mountain Notes. And it was about our experience, a diary of a year in lockdown. It's one of the weirdest things. And I have to write,
wait a minute. Can I write that down? Tell me, can you spell things?
Mountain Notes, Mountain, Mountain Notes by Maggie Doyle.
Mountain she decided Notes to keep her name. And it is Maggie, right?
Maggie, yeah. Maggie Doyle. And our website is MAGYSFARM.
MAGYSFARM at .com.
Yeah, .co.uk. .co.uk. That's our website.
Oh, .com. I'm sorry. .com UK / UK. Is that what it is?
No. It's maggiesfarm.co.uk. That's the website.
Okay, sorry. Hold on. I'm writing this down. Maggie's MAGYS FARM farm.
Yeah, and you'll see photographs of Bill Crothers and Seamus and Ari Hoenig and all those guys, and you'll see photographs of these 6 wonderful girls that we sponsor and videos and all kinds of things. And it's been a hell of a journey for us.
Sorry, it's .co.uk.
Yeah, .co.uk. So she wrote a book about a diary, and some weird things happened. And one of the things I think all the people who are listening tonight are going to really love this story, because I know you kind of look at the quiet man and John Wayne and you think, oh my God, that's Ireland. And it is. We had the John Wayne Maureen O'Hara experience before we built the new farm with the venue and all these different things that we've done after years of working successfully, I guess.
Yeah.
It was Maggie's mum's place, and it was a little single-story cottage. And we had to demolish the cottage so that we could build the farm. She died a number of years ago. And whatever happened, Maggie went down. I was working, and Maggie went down. That's us there. Yeah, that's the farm.
Yeah.
And the venue is
wow, what a great
is the one on the right. Yes, that's me before I lost a bit of weight. Oh, it doesn't really matter. That's Maggie, and she's the superstar. Anyway, cut the long story short, whenever we were demolishing the old house, she went down, and she went down for the last sort of clear out. And whenever she went in, there was a starling that had come through the chimney. This is the County Down mourns, everybody. This is the way it works. Anyway, cut the long story short, the starling came down through the chimney, but it was locked in the house and couldn't get out. So she let it out, and she talked to it, and she's a vegetarian, she's an animal lover, and she was so excited she was able to lift it, and she was opened the door and it flew away.
Yeah.
But it was nesting in the old house. And one of the things that happened during 2020 and 2021 was that the starling came back to nest again. And it nested in the letterbox because the post office was built in one of the pillars of the house.
Yes.
So it nested in the letterbox. That was this time last year, and then, or that was March last year, and then it came back again this year, and it's going to come back again next year. So we had to get a plastic box and leave it for the postman. We had to say, listen, the starling's here. It's taken a letterbox over for 7 or 8 weeks again. I'm really sorry. He said, that's cool. He put the letters in this plastic box, and the starling and its chicks lived in the letterbox, and it came back again this year, and it's going to come back again next year. But it was the same one. It was the same
God!
It was in the previous house.
Wow!
So that was part of the book, and it's a hell of a story.
Wow! I'm definitely getting the book. That sounds so good.
Okay.
Wow, that's great. Holy moly! Gosh, This is exciting to find out what you're doing. Let's see. Well, okay, so broadcasting. Can we talk a little bit about that? And then actually, why don't we play something first? So should I go back to YouTube or should I do the MP3s?
An MP3 might be nice. I've got 5 studio albums in the bag. Before we go back to the recent one with Adam and Mark, which of course it's always important to talk about the recent one. There was one I had a dream, and for anybody who obviously, with me being a jazz trumpet player, I'm guessing that no matter how many people I would be a fan of, I'm sure you would guess that Freddie Hubbard would be in that list. Freddie's one of my all-time heroes.
Yeah.
And Freddie put out a record that was kind of not that well known on Electrica. I'm trying to remember, Andy Ferguson was the name of the guy who arranged it. And there was a large ensemble, strings, saxes, brass, Chuck Findlay and a lot of the big heads were on it, and a rhythm section. But it was like a large ensemble version of different tunes. And it was called Ride Like the Wind. He did a version of Christopher Cross's Ride Like the Wind.
Yeah.
Serious record. And it was while he still had his chops, because he lost his chops towards the end as a result of just beating the trumpet to death for so many years, you know?
Yes.
And I fell in love with this record, and I thought, you know, if I ever get a chance before I die, I wonder would I ever be able to do something like that. So he inspired the record. The record I did in 2018 called Making Other Arrangements, and it was with a large ensemble with
great name.
Yeah, woodwind and brass and Gatlin strings, a 12-piece string section. So there's a tune. I obviously covered one of his tunes because that was the inspiration, Bridget. Yeah. But track 4, which I think you have, which is an Earth, Wind and Fire song.
After the Love Has Gone?
After the Love Has Gone, and it's just trumpet and strings. So that might be nice for you just to tap into that.
Ooh, let's do that. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen because I get better sound, and I do have an app that makes me have better sound, but
you're such a
you know, this is the easiest. Wow.
Thank you, Cathy.
That is beautiful. So, is that your original song?
No, that's Earth, Wind and Fire, After the Love Is Gone, but it's so different from the original.
Yeah, I
A lot of
didn't
people might not
recognize it.
no, a lot of people won't recognize it, but that's part of the magic,
Huh.
of being an interpreter. And, some of us have specialities where melody still becomes something that we want to embrace, and artistic integrity is something that we want to support. So therefore we pay homage originally to the original. And some of us are seeing the music as a vehicle. If you probably remember way back in the Blue Note days, gosh, I'm trying to think of the little chap who was the caller for Blue Note, very, very well known for Blue Note Records. I can't remember his name, but he basically said, and tonight the band is going to play as their vehicle for improvisation. I remember April, their vehicle for improvisation. And of course, one of the reasons that bebop couldn't really survive was because the compositional end was gone, because they were using their original standards and different things like that, like Cherokee and things like that. So after Miles and a lot of other people, Ornette and different people like that, said, okay, it's had its time. Let's now progress with something else. Composition and creativity and melody and new sounds came back. And I guess we all just have to celebrate that. And part of the fabulous thing that jazz musicians, including Brad and my Brad Melvin, them all, is that we welcome in the music that we're also socialized by, because we're jazz musicians doesn't mean everything else is bad. We have to embrace the stuff and think, oh my goodness, that's so beautiful. So we hear something and we think, okay, well, let's bring that into our canon. What can we do to respectfully bring that into our canon? So that was an honor to bring that tune into our canon.
And who wrote the strings?
I have a great friend called Kane Boylan, who's a piano player on my album, who we saw in the video earlier on. And Kane is a producer, an arranger, and things like that. So he arranged the string part, and we brought the strings in. And no matter how long you're in the business, I've been in the business like over 30 years, well over 30 years now. It's still a shock whenever you've recorded your bits and the strings come in, and there's a lot of girls in the string section and ladies, and they have always got so much to say. And I don't mean to sound bad. It's just they've got always so much to say. I haven't seen you since 2 weeks ago, whenever we did that. How's the dog? And all these they have all these different things that they're saying. It's just chirp, 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 chirp. And you're looking, I'm saying to Kena, I'm going to play, or what's going on? And all of a sudden, then they get the glasses off and they have these headbands and they rip them off and they put their lippy on and they go down and they sit down. And all of a sudden, he says, okay, we're going live in 30 seconds. And a friend of mine who's a wonderful songwriter from Nashville called Jude Johnston, who wrote an awful lot of stuff. She's involved in the project with us. She wrote a lot of stuff for Bonnie Raitt and different like that, she's a genius. And she would always say to me, she says, that's the shit. That's the and I was just looking and I was hearing the strings and I heard them playing and I just thought, oh my God.
Yeah, that's the shit.
I didn't know what to say. I couldn't say anything. I just had to thank them so much, humbly, because what they did was.
That was incredible. A lot of times when you hear something like that, it's actually not real strings, but they are real, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Because you hear the realness in it. And their intonation was amazing, and it's a lot of, I don't know how many strings there were, or if
12,
there were overdubs.
Yeah, there were 12, and it's a couple of double ups, but as you can imagine, everybody, that's quite an expensive thing to happen, and and so there was a time limit on it, so it all had to happen quite quickly. But that's better because you're leaving the energy in the room, and whether we're talking or whether we're playing or whether we're politicking, when you think of the great, Martin Luther King and Obama and different great speech makers you've heard, and Churchill and all these different speech makers past, and they have an energy there, and the energy is so strong at the time that it lasts for 100 years. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's a bit like that. But the strength. I'm just gonna let my cat out. Give us 2 seconds.
It's the cat break. We
Jazz cat,
spoke
yeah.
about that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind so, but basically, I've just let her out now. But basically, yeah, it's that energy is in the room, and that the strings energy is still there. And I put the record on, not that often, but I
Yeah.
have a catalog of about 6 albums, and occasionally I would put them on,
Yeah.
and you feel everything that happened at the time, everything that was trapped in that moment of time, and of course, that's all music is.
Uh-huh.
Especially recordings, whether it's videos or whether it's audio, it's that moment in time. We never play it again. We never play it the same way again. We never feel the same way. Maybe we had a bad experience the night before, a great experience the night before, or somebody was ill, or somebody's passionate, and whatever way it makes us think, it affects our emotional thing. And one of the things that I would say to my students is, what do you play? You play guitar, okay? Give me the guitar. How much do you like the guitar? Well, I love this guitar. What have you done? Oh, I play with it all the time. How often? 3 hours a day. Fantastic. Put it on the table for me, okay? And they put it down. I say, listen, it must love you back. Yeah, it does. I say, tell it to play your favorite tune. I say, what do you mean? I said, talk to it and tell it to play your favorite tune. And they don't want to, obviously, because they look like an idiot, but they do it anyway because I'm the lecturer. So they say, please play for me. Please play me, that Larry Mullen solo from U2. And of course, nothing happens, because the instrument's just a facilitator for the head and the heart, and we're trying to connect with the head and the heart. And the punters have the head and the heart. The musicians have the head and the heart. And we're all part of that one team. And I guess that's, again, another example of that,
Yeah, it's all, of course, all true for everybody even like in all walks of life. But what you just said, especially for vocalists, it's it's kind of a different thing because the instrument is your body. So I think as vocalists, you're more swayed to think that this body is the originator of the of the music, and it's not. But it's an interesting spiritual aspect to get out of the way in this body, and tap into the channel and what's coming through you. And I've been thinking a lot in the last few years about this forward viewpoint, like outside of myself. One of my dear friends said that he was practicing with joy, and when you do that, for instance, that's outside of yourself. You create this joy for what you're doing, and that's outside of yourself. So that's a great tool to use, but it's a really interesting aspect to practice. Not just practice your scales and, of course, there's that part of practice, thinking about it and going over it, but there's also the part of practice is how you want to end up, how do you want to feel,
Yeah. And you've had a really important part there, Cathy, because practicing scales, arpeggios, chords. Let's not beat about the bush what jazz is. Jazz is a language. Well, what does that mean? It means it's vocabulary and grammar. So the vocabulary is the scales and the chords and the arpeggios and your ability to use them instantaneously. Okay, that's the first thing. What's the grammar? Grammar is the punctuation, the space, the appropriateness. It's not just that, though. It's also this thing called dynamic contouring. So let me tell you about this, because this is an academic thing that you may not have heard of, but it's a concept. And the thing about the technical aspect of tongue and articulation of fingers and valves and being able to play at 180 people, that is really important. And I can identify with a student and say, listen, 3 months practice, you'll be able to do that. And that's really good. But if I give them a concept and I talk about dynamic contouring, they can instantaneously make themselves 50% better. Instantaneously, within seconds, by just putting their instrument down, embracing the concept. So this concept of dynamic contouring is a really big thing, because if jazz is a language, then tension and release, that aspect that we have whenever we talk and how we soften things, it's exactly the same in jazz. So that idea of creating harmonic tension and things like that. So that's part of the vocabulary thing. But the grammar stuff, like spaces, we think of Miles as the master of space and things like that. The straight tone, the vibrato, the straight tone maybe causing tension, the vibrato maybe releasing the tension at the end of the line. We think of a narrative of maybe a 2-minute solo or a 1.5-minute solo, and we think there's the narrative overall, there's a start, middle, and end, but then there's all the lines in between, and some of them are motivically developed, so some of them will have a different dynamic contour. So let me tell you this, and I'm busting to hear if any of your listeners to hear tonight, or our listeners, thanks everybody for joining us, if any of our listeners tonight think this is an interesting concept. If we think of 1, the number 1, as the quietest that we can possibly play, sing, no matter what the instrument is, and 10 as the loudest that we can possibly play and sing, then if you go to any transcription, or if you take time to transcribe a solo, or if you download a transcription of anybody, Wynton or Charlie Parker or whoever you want to be, anybody, and you can download and look at that transcription, and you can listen to the dynamic of that transcription, you should be able to assign a number to every single note that they play. And you might find that in a line, they're moving from a lower dynamic, lower volume, or lower pitch, so I can hear they're naturally going from 3 to 7 and down to 5. You can put a dynamic contour across that. Okay, that enables people to maximize the effect of anything they do. So if you're superimposing, I'm sorry for complicating it for everybody, but some of you might be connected to this. So if you're superimposing a Lydian instead of a major or dominant, or Lydian dominant, whatever it happens to be, or you're putting an altered harmony over an ordinary dominant, or you're creating tension harmonically with that, you can superimpose a dynamic contour on that to reinforce your intent, your intention. And that's a concept. And if you get people to buy the ticket to understand what that is, and it's my job as an educator to get people to do that and to demonstrate it and to show people who've already done that and to explain so they know how to do it, and then get them to play it and say, you're not quite doing it. Give me a 7 and reduce that line to a 3. So I want you to strive for a 7 or 8, and I want you to bring it down to a 3 within that line. Then that's something that they can instantaneously apply at any stage. It's not something you need to go away for 25 years and do. They can instantaneously apply because they've bought the concept. Well, that's really, really important. It's not just practicing, but it's actually thinking of a holistic thing to being a player, because obviously we're trying to reach an emotional connection. And if you want an example, because some of you, because you live in LA, you might not have these examples. So I'm going to give you 2 examples you might not have come across. There's a singer and pianist in the UK called Liane Carroll, Liane Carroll, Carroll. And I mean, she's got so many records out, but she had an album called Seaside, and she had a track called Mercy Now. And Mercy Now was her interpretation with a large ensemble of a song written by Mary Gauthier called Mercy Now. Okay. So if you listen to that track, Liane Carroll, Mercy Now, or if you listen to Dhafer Youssef, Dhafer Youssef, Youssef, who's an oud player and vocalist, if you listen to his version of Humankind, then you will hear dynamic contouring on a massive scale, and you will hear emotional connection, and you will understand the magic of something that can be superimposed by anybody of any level. Now, obviously, the better you are and the more practiced you are, the better you can superimpose it. But you can take that as a concept. And I think that's a magical thing about practice, because obviously if we identify a lot of different concepts, then we can change people's outlook and their ability to succeed as musicians. And that's a really wonderful thing. Yeah,
that's also deeper, but applicable to life too. But they'd have to think about that and do it. Yeah, it's really wonderful. I mean, dynamics is really amazing, and tension. Yeah, Benny Maupin lives in LA, and a few years ago he was playing, relatively often. Actually, you could go and sit in the audience right in the front row and watch Benny Maupin play, and I would just wait for his tension notes. And which he always went to, and always with the most love and enjoyment. And they always sounded to me perfect. It made the music perfect, those tension notes. It's really beautiful. So yeah, it's definitely more of a concept in your performance, isn't it? You have to
Yep.
prepare, but then when you perform, then you just
Well,
have to be there.
for those of you who aren't musicians here listening, you may wonder why you love the music, because you probably can't put your finger on it,
Yeah,
and that we all know that one of the things that we all say is the improvisations are different every time, and we
yeah,
always say that also that people have different personalities, and those personalities are making it sound differently,
yeah.
But one of the things I think that we do is we have an individual approach, and we think of a weighting possibly towards the different elements of what we do. There's a term that athletes use, which I think is really fascinating, Cathy, and I'm so sorry for talking about this because it's far too technical. I know you want to talk about the fun things. This is the last thing I'm going to talk. It's my
That's
doctor.
okay. Don't worry. No problems.
I'm terribly sorry. This bloody doctor music thing getting in the way again. I'm terribly sorry. But athletes talk about this thing called marginal gains, and I have no
Yeah.
idea. You've heard of it, Cathy, have you?
Yes, I have.
So basically, there was a really famous British cycling coach so famous I forget his name, called David Brailsford. He's still alive, David Brailsford, and he took the British Olympic cycling team to multi-gold medals over 2 or 3 seasons, or 2 or 3 Olympics. I mean, we never won a medal, and he got them all. And then he took the Tour de France, 4 Tour de France wins in a year, totally nuts. Anyway, cut the long story short, he wrote a book about it, and because he thought it was so important. And the concept basically of marginal gains, whenever he came into coach cycling, he wasn't a cyclist. He was something else. He was already a successful sports arbiter and some other thing. So he came in, they got all the big cycling coaches together, and he says, what does your man or woman have to do to get a gold medal in the next Olympics? And how much do they have to improve by? And one of them said 12%, 12.5%. And he was really kind of shocked by that. And he says, 12.5%? So if we get them 12.5% better, they're going to win a gold. He says, yeah, that's going to happen. He says, 12.5% of what? And the guy said, well, 12.5%. He said, of what, So he thought, but sure, there's all these things. There's diet, and there's sleep, and there's training, and there's fartlek, and there's capacity, and there's weights, and there's cycling, and there's aerodynamics, and there's hats, and there's the shape of the hat, and there's the shape of the gloves, and how far the feet are from the bike. So he got all these experts in. And after about 3 months of consultation, they came up with 216 individual things, 216 things that could be improved. So he said, well, let's try and see what percentage we can improve. So because around about 170 of them had never been heard of, then talking for 30 seconds made a 50% improvement. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But some of the stuff that they had been working on, like fitness, well, it took a serious amount of work to get a 1% improvement. So he said, well, let's try and get a 1% improvement across these 216 things. Well, of course, that was it. And it works so much for music. We can get a 1% improvement across the emotional things by who we listen to, the practical things by, getting technique like, Lydian scales and Lydian dominant scales and substitutions and, superimposing a major arpeggio stroke scale over a sus, a tone above, and all these different things. I don't want to bore everybody, but all these different things are technical things. And of course we can prove that we're getting better because we could stick a metronome on, tick tock, and as soon as we can play it at 120, put up to 130 or 140 or whatever, and we know, well, I can do that, so I should be better. You know what I mean? But then you have to do it with the concepts of the dynamic contouring, of the emotional content, of the range, of the I'm playing too many notes. I'm not building a narrative. I need to slow down. I need to have more space. I need to develop that idea that I played in the 5th bar. And let's make that a motif that goes through. So all these different things are happening. But from an educationalist point of view, it's so motivating. It's unbelievable. Because then you turn the lights on for somebody and you don't know what direction they're going to go in, because obviously there's something else. And they might hear something you've never heard of. And being my age, I'm 57, and St. Patrick's Day coming up, I'm 56 now. And I look at the kids, and especially really gifted ones who are playing, and I say, who do you listen to play like that? And they say, and I say, who? I've never heard of them because I'm too old to have heard of them. They're listening to something else. But the good news is that means that they're going to evolve in a different way for me. And that's something that's really important to me. They're going to growing.
That's beautiful. I want to play in something else. By the way, my friend Dan wants to know if you've played with Ben Clatworthy.
Now that name rings a bell.
He's
no,
English.
I haven't, but I've played Ben Clatworthy on my radio show, so you can tell Dan that.
He's a wonderful player. He lives here, but he goes back to England. Okay, so shall I play from the record or YouTube?
Play for the record. Play my latest album. So track 1, which is called Right Angle, would be nice.
Okay, so that is, I only have the one that has Skydive as the first one. So what am I looking for?
Skydive was my first record in 2001, whenever I was about 3.
Okay.
For the record, which is my most recent one, which was recorded in 2020. I don't mind, actually. Skydive is a Freddie Hubbard tune, so I don't really mind.
I'm looking for the record, but now...
The track is called Right Angle.
Right Angle. Okay, I got it.
Okay.
And I'm not sure that they'll allow me to stay on with this because of licensing stuff, but let's try.
Really?
Well, you never know. That's the one bad about all this stuff. Okay, here we go. I love this picture too.
Yeah, it's my best friend to the left, Mark and Adam.
Wonderful.
Thank you very much.
Wow, what a trip. It's a real
Yeah.
trip.
Yeah. Well, music is about love, and the two guys on the left of the photograph that you're looking at there, for the record album cover, are my best friends of all time. The guy beside me, Doc, is since we first met whenever he was 17, he's now 48. Since we first met, the longest we've had of not talking to each other is 2 days. The other guy to the left of him is Kane, who owns the studio Camden. Kane's a very special friend of mine as well. We're very close, very, very close. And then Adam and Mark on the right. And Adam and Mark, who are legends of music. Mark was Leanie's first bass player and, celebrated 50 years with Danny Gottlieb. They are real human beings. And Adam and Mark would never really go a week or two without being in touch with me, even though we haven't seen them since the last record was toured. They're coming back in April to the next record. And I've used Mark for my wife and I have a project to do with the website, which I know some people are going to look at, MAGYSFARM.co.uk, called the Maggie's Farm Collective, which is 6 girls, singers, songwriters. We're trying to help women in music. We're trying to create a platform for them using the contacts that we obviously have together through the world. And we have producers working with them, with engineers working with them, with songwriting coaches working with them. And that's part of the thing that we're trying to do, is to kind of provide a platform. And Mark, who's one of the great bass players, who also played in Joni Mitchell records and things, has played on some of the girls' records from, remotely, as we've had to embrace this whole remote thing, and that's I can't speak highly enough of those two legends of our music. And again, the humanity which they have. I think whenever you know that there's a humanity and a passion for life with human beings, obviously music is just like everything else. It benefits from that, and it's humbling. It's a humbling experience for me to be with those musicians. It's a wonderful thing.
So nice. I wanted to tell you a few things. Well, first of all, I just wanted to say that I can imagine you and Larry Goldings together, which makes me laugh. That just makes me laugh. Kind of warms the heart.
Yeah, I can't wait to meet.
I wanted to say that. And I wanted to tell you a tiny little story about Seamus. There was this one evening at a jazz club that's probably the oldest jazz club in LA, called Catalina's. This was years ago. I think it was the first Catalina's. And one of my favorite guitarists, I love guitar, and one of my favorites is Scofield. So I went to see Scofield. So it was a quintet, and Seamus was the other horn player, and they did something that blew my head apart. So I was watching them, and they both started soloing together, and physically, like, they were standing, as you were looking, they physically, while they were soloing together, they started pivoting outwards, both of them.
Okay.
My mind just absolutely blew apart. I don't know why they thought of that, or how they thought of it, or or I don't know what it was, but it was it was so amazing. And Seamus, that was a long, long time ago, and Seamus was great back then. He was, Seamus
is a bit of a prodigy. Seamus Blake, for those of you who aren't familiar with Seamus Blake, great tenor sax player, obviously from Canada, who actually spends a lot of time in Europe. I think during lockdown he was caught in Europe and stayed here for a while. We never talk about the process, and here's another thing. Here's another concept for you. This idea that sometimes you might hear musicians talking about internalization. You know, we're trying to improvise, and it's an automated process because all the practicing that Cathy was talking about earlier, and all of the concept stuff that I was talking about earlier, it all combines. Just like driving a car. If you think of driving a motor vehicle, you know, when you get in, and the very first time somebody says get in and drive, and you think, oh, what's that? That's the key. That's the door. I pull the door. I get in. I sit down. What's that? That's the seatbelt. I put that on. I put the key in. I turn. I've got the brakes. I've got the clutch. I've got all these different things. The wing mirror, and all of these things seem foreign to you, but eventually it becomes an automated process. You don't think about it, and music's like that. And we're trying to automate a process, and that automation is something where you're not thinking about what you're doing, but all of the practice things would sort of come in. And people of the level of the likes of Seamus Blake or Bill Crothers or the other legends, John Scofield that you're talking about, it's an automated process. They aren't thinking anymore about the technical aspect of what they're doing. They're just thinking of being in the moment.
Yeah.
And we want you to share our moment, you know, no matter, please don't get me wrong, I'm not the standard of these great people. These are people who I admire and worship, and as a university lecturer and broadcaster, it's my duty to serve them. I realize they're a different level for me. But I'm not offended by that. I'm not hurt by that. I'm really excited just to be part of the team, like Cathy's part of the team, and like you're all part of the team. And Sandy, who is the world record holder, typer and comment maker of the Cathy show. Sandy's part of that team, you know, and Joyce Glasgow's part of that team, and Roland Scaroons. I bet you I've pronounced that really badly. Sorry, Roland, but we're all part of that team. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're in an automated way. We're connecting with the music in an automated way. We're commenting on the music, and in an automated way, these players are playing with the music, and we're all part of the one team.
Yeah. You're a nice guy. Let's see. I wanted to ask you about your broadcasting.
Yeah.
Because obviously that's a big part of your life as well. And how did that come about? And you've been doing it a long time, right?
Well, that's a funny thing to say. I don't know if I have been. It kind of feels like long. It's 15 years. Is that a long time?
Pretty
I think
long.
I think it probably is. It's my oldest cat is older than my broadcast.
Okay.
Maybe not that long. And my oldest donkey is twice as old as my broadcasting career. So maybe it's not that old. It's kind of funny because I work for a big global organization like the BBC. We have a lot of jazz shows, and cleverly, and as you would expect, they want everybody to have a different. All the broadcasters have a different aspect, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And mine is very much new releases and players who are alive. No, I still visit Bop and post Bop. I would still play Horace Silver, and you know, I'm a massive fusion fan. I'm not a jazz snob, so I embrace jazz fusion and Weather Report and Wade and Breckers and Return to Forever. I don't think that they've sold out, or I don't think Miles' Electric Period sold out. I think we're just all part of the one team, and they've got their cultural link, and they were socialized that way. And the neoclassicists like Winton and latterly Charlie Porter and different people like that, they've been socialized their way, and we want to embrace them all and welcome them to our family and welcome the audiences that way. So as a broadcaster, I think like that. And I'm aware that whenever I play Charlie Porter, I think I've mentioned his name 8 times. Anybody who's not familiar with Charlie Porter, he's one of the
I'm going to go listen to him.
One of the new trumpet players in the block, and he's nearly responsible for the end of my career, because whenever I heard him for the first time, my jaw hit the floor so hard I thought I was going to lose my. He's an utter beast. But a beautiful beast, you know. So I feel it's my job to serve my community. So my community are my listeners, and I have a lot of listeners, for BBC, obviously. So I have a lot of listeners, and my job is to serve them and to point them towards the social media and to point them towards YouTube videos and to point them towards the gigs that are happening. And these guys travel. Ireland's a bigger country than a lot of you think. Forget about John Wayne and Maura O'Hara. Guys, wake up. That's gone. We're a bigger country. You can reach us in a helicopter or plane or whatever. You can jump on the back of a seagull's back and you can jump off and they can land in the Mourne Mountains, whatever happens to it. It's easy to get here. And these guys all tour here, you know what I mean? So they all play here. And, it's a responsibility of me to give my listeners a real life experience of what the music's about, because it is real life. It's like a speech. It's like an Obama speech, or if you're maybe not that way inclined, maybe you don't like Obama. Terribly sorry. Whoever it is, whoever floats your boat, whoever is lights your candle, that guy, whoever that guy is or girl is, who makes that speech, that doesn't matter to me, But whoever it is, that thing where it lights your flame. These people light our flame. These musicians light our flame, and we can be a part of their life. We can be a part of their community. We can be liking their social media posts. We can be watching their YouTube videos. We can be sending them a message and say, hey man, you killed it, as they say in LA. You killed it, baby. Or as we say in Ireland, yeah, baby. Whatever happens.
So now, are you connecting this to your broadcasting?
100%. My responsibility is to make that connection for the people so that they're not looking as observers. Jazz is not about observing. Jazz is about being in the moment. You're invited by me to be in the moment to listen to, and not only by me, because you can actually connect with them yourself. These guys, jazz is still a minority sport. I mean, my wife and I have a music venue here at Maggie's Farm. We had Ari Honig, as I said earlier, and we had Tom Allendorf, who's a wonderful guitar player we won't have heard of yet, but you will pretty soon. Seamus Blackwood Brothers and Jim Beard and John Harrington from Steely Dan. We've had them here. And the people who drove hundreds of miles to meet these people, because they are part of their community. They're followers of Steely Dan. They're followers of these guys that have gone to New York, as we always go to New York. If you're a jazz fan, first thing you do is who's playing in Village Vanguard or and you can get into it's disgraceful. It's disgraceful. Let me tell you now. You can get into the Village Vanguard for the price of a bottle of gin, and I've just had a half a bottle of gin since the start of the show. You can get in the Village Vanguard for the price of a bottle of gin, guys, to see the best player ever. Last time I was in the Village Vanguard, Kenny Burton was playing. Last time I was in, Tom Harrell was playing. What? To see these people? Are you kidding me? Of course we go. Well, that's how close they are. Touching distance. Hi, Tom, or hi, Kenny, can I get you a drink, or whatever happens to be. Guys, let's make it. Cathy Segal-Garcia is just who? ? Linley. He has played with one of the favorites, Paul Brady in the Vicar Street. Oh yeah, baby, Paul Brady.
Is that you? Is he talking about you?
Yeah, Paul Brady. Nothing but the same old story, or the world is what you make it. Paul Brady, one of the great songwriters of Ireland's ever produced. Yeah, 100%. And do you know what? Whoever wrote that, whoever was saying that, Dan DeVilla. Dan, I'll tell you a great story about Paul Brady. I marked his cousin today in my degree class. His young cousin is 19, a guy called Oran Sweeney, Odhran. You won't have heard of him. He hasn't released anything yet. He's a world beater. You'll hear of Oran Sweeney. Definitely, he's a world beater. I assessed him today in his performance assessment at University.
Isn't that interesting?
Isn't it a small world? Yes, Linley, according to his credits on allmusic.com. Hi, Dan. Welcome.
Dan always shows us, which is great, on allmusic.com, people's credits, which is, maybe 80 to 90% correct usually. Sometimes they'll list a Linley Hamilton, who's a photographer or something, but.
Okay, well, thanks, Dan, and welcome to our team, and thank you for joining us tonight. And I'm humbled to meet all your fans. Thank you.
There's another thing I wanted to just mention, which was, have you ever heard of Nathan Breedlove?
No. Anybody who breeds love, I'm interested in.
Well, he's a trumpet player. He's old school guy, like kind of bebop-ish days probably, but he's playing now, and he's he spent time in Europe. That's why I thought you might know of him. And he played with a lot of like the bebop guys who had, who were playing in Europe. And but he's a guy who's really interesting. He's a really interesting player to listen to. He's not like a super perfect trumpet player, you hear everything. The intonation is like bing. He's storytelling, and he's so in the moment, and you follow his lines, and he's really, really, really enjoyable.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I recommend him.
I'll check him out. That's my kind of guy.
Yeah. I think you'd enjoy his playing.
Thank you.
Do you practice now, or do you mostly write, or do you just do other things?
I practice an awful lot. I actually, whenever lockdown happened, because I was a gig fit player. I mean, I obviously, broadcaster, university lecturer, you can imagine that takes a bit of time, but I've always been a practicer. But whenever the lockdown happened, I was afraid of losing my chops. So I kind of employed a wonderful, wonderful trumpet tutor who was one of the great players in the UK. In fact, he was another child prodigy guy who was, for anybody who's ever heard of the acid jazz movement in the UK, there was a band called Us Three, and they did a very successful single called Canterlip, which, as far as I know, was in the pop charts in the UK in the late 90s or 80s for a long, long time.
Oh.
His name is Gerard Presencer. He was part of the BBC Big Band, but he moved to Copenhagen to conduct the Danish Jazz Radio Big Band, as far as I know,
okay.
and to teach in one of the institutes. He was the head of the Royal Academy in London. Very successful career. Yeah. And I've known him for many, many years, and I just contacted him and said, Gerard, can you help me? And he said yes. So I go remotely to him. In fact, I have a lesson with him tomorrow at 12 o'clock UK time. You'll all be asleep. You'll all be asleep whenever I'm getting a lesson from my he'll be putting me through my paces, and I'll be crying and everything. He'll say, shut up and play. So I'm getting my lesson with Gerard tomorrow at 12, and I get a lesson every 2 weeks, and it's a very important part of everything.
Yeah. Okay. That's interesting. How do you find it difficult, especially because you have a lot of things on your plate? Do you find it difficult to schedule what you do?
No, I make it work. I mean, I am very lucky where I live. I don't live the jazz life for anybody that's watching. I'm very lucky. I've some people say you make your luck, but either way, I'm a good talker. You've probably guessed by now. I talk quite well. So I have the radio show, and I'm a lecturer, and I'm a player. I have a lot of records. I think I'm on 120 albums, and I have 6 as an artist. So I've been busy. It's the way it works in Ireland. It's a small place, small population centre, a lot of opportunities. You know what I mean? I've capitalised on that. So no, I've actually got a sabbatical coming up because my university. Sure, they use my research, and my next record is part of my research. So they're giving me off 4 months on full pay to get that record ready and to.
Oh, wow, cool!
I'm training. I'm doing sit-ups. I'm walking. I'm practicing. I'm on a gym bike for about 2 hours a day, and I'm practicing about 4 hours a day. And I'm getting lessons every 2 weeks, and I'm gigging about 3 nights a week, and it's all really, really good. So
cool.
Yeah.
So you're kind of in the preparation mode as well, right?
Yeah, I've written the stuff. Hasn't been arranged yet, but I've written it. I'm kind of buzzing about what happens next, because that stage, as you probably know, Cathy, is you don't really know what the final product is, but I know a timeline for it, because for me to be successful with my record, I need to be able to audio visualize a final product. I don't know if that means anything. It's another sport thing that sort of transfers to music, where you need to audio visualize how you're going to perform. You need to have an idea in your head of the emotional connection with the musicians, of what intent you want to display. And there's a little phrase that I use. It's one of my phrases. I don't know. Again, I'm really excited to share it with you, because from a listener point of view, if you're non-musicians listening, this might be something which we would call an insight. So I have this little term which I share with my performing students at college, who I love dearly, called the IPIRP. So if we go to the very end first, the last P is performance. So that's whether it's being in the studio or in the gig situation. And the R before that is obviously the rehearsal to get ready for that performance. Okay. So let's now forget about that, because those are the last things. The RP are the last things that happen. The performance that ends after that performance, whether it's a recording, because that's in the moment, or the rehearsal for that, which is probably only going to be a few days or a few weeks max before that performance, okay, or recording or whatever. So if we go back down to the start, so the IPI-RP. So the first I is the isolation or the identification of the things that you need to work on. Yeah. Whether it be technical things for yourself, like so for your trumpet player, you know, range, articulation, tongue, breathing, making sure you're using the one embouchure for the full register of your range, stamina, all those different things you have to do. Or else it's working with the piece and deciding, you know, what substitutions you're going to put into those chords so that your improvisations are going to be, you know, governed by tension and release, and you're going to plan those things, and then that's it. So that's that I. And then the first P then is the practice. So you're practicing a number of marginal gain devices. Remember we talked about that earlier on.
Yeah.
We're kind of thinking, well, let's work on a physical thing, let's work on a mental thing, let's work on a harmony thing, let's work on a range thing, let's work on whatever. And we're subdividing exercises to create those exercises so that we can do that P, that practice. So the practice is those putting those things that we're preparing into operation. Okay. Yeah. Then the second I, which is the most important. So IP, I identify and isolate, P practice. And then the second I, which is the most important I. And that's called intent. What's your intent for what you're planning to do? Is it angry? Is it voice? Is it, what are you trying to translate? Because obviously, again, we talk about earlier on, jazz is a language. What's our intent? What are we trying to say? Okay. And then obviously the rehearsal, the practice. So the IPI lasts for ages and ages and ages and ages. And the preparation for this record has been 4 to 5 months, probably now, mostly practice and isolation of things that were stuff that, because of my day job and being a broadcaster, things had slipped, Cathy, you know what I mean? So sometimes whenever you slip, you try and do a quick fix, and like things like maybe you take your lips off the horn in the middle of the register so you have more power for the upper register. It's a complete disaster. It destroys everything. So you have to work back to try and get the one embouchure across the 3 octaves, whatever, you know. So that IPI has been a huge part, and I'm still in the middle of that, you know, and I won't be anywhere near the rehearsal, but Adam Nussbaum, Mark Egan are flying in 26th of April, so I'll get my rehearsal with them. I'll send them the parts in March. I get my R with them for 2 days. My wife, who's a bit of a legend, Maggie, she'll be making them vegetarian food and baking them lemon drizzle cakes. Stop salivating, you guys in the background there. Making them lemon drizzle cakes and coconut, and making them mulled wine and different things like that. They'll be feeding the donkeys, and she'll be baking the bread and they'll feed the donkeys. And they'll be rehearsing, and they'll be telling us the stories that Adam always says. I remember whenever Brecker said that, and he played that, and then, you know, Miles walked in, and I'm looking, what? And they're all talking the story. And Mark Egan will say, yeah, do you remember whenever I said Pat, who said Pat Metheny? I said, what? You know, whenever they said that. So all that shit will be happening, you know, and then we'll rehearse, and then we'll do the gigs and the performance, and then we'll do 3 gigs, and then we'll go into the recording studio, and then it's in the moment, and whatever happens then.
Very nice. Very nice. Hi, Maggie.
Come on in, Maggie, say hello. My wife's an author. I was saying it earlier. She's probably writing a book. You're going to come and say hello to all our fans in America? Yes, she hasn't got her lippy on.
That's okay. That's all right, Maggie. It's not detailed. Hi.
Hi. Hello. How are you?
Oh, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
I'm going to be ordering your book soon.
Oh my goodness, that'd be lovely. Where are you in America?
Los Angeles.
Oh, wonderful town.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
It'll take us a while to walk there.
Sorry?
It'll take us a while to walk there, I think.
Yeah, come over sometime. I'll help out. I'll do whatever. Whatever I can, I'll do. Yeah.
I was there about 25 years ago. A friend of mine had an apartment in, I think, is it Brentwood?
Yes.
Is that to you?
Yeah.
He was working for a
record
label for Island Records, yeah. I think. So So we did a kind of mini tour of Los Angeles. Those highways, them like 8 lanes. I've never been driving and thinking, I like to be.
Especially, I know, especially coming from Ireland. And, strangely enough, when I went to Ireland about probably about 15 years ago with my husband for like a late celebration of our marriage, whatever that word is. It's left my brain. Yeah. And the roads gave me a lot of trouble because I was driving a stick shift, which no problem. I mean, we were both driving, but when I was driving, stuff happened. Like we were going through a little town and there was a rock jutting out on a very thin street, and I got too close, blew the tire. We went to the station to fix it, and he said, "Oh yeah, that rock." And I was like,
you said stick shift. I actually took a break there for a second because I came, what the hell is a stick shift? We all drive, everything we drive here is stick shift. Automatics haven't really kicked in Ireland yet. So it's always using a gear stick. So whenever you say that, it's really funny because we have a clutch and a gear for all of you lazy LA people who just sort of press it in automatic, and I'll just put my foot in the accelerator and it's going to do the rest. So you have to shift every 3 or 4 seconds. So wow. Happy to hear you say that.
Yeah, but we had a lot of adventures on the roads there. But the freeway thing is very freaky. Like when I go to New York, I'm from Boston originally, which I can totally deal with the way that the traffic flows. They have the roundabouts, and I'm totally a Bostonian when I get there. But New York is a whole other level.
Couldn't drive there. I've been there a lot of times. No way. Taxi's fine. That's it.
Yeah.
Too hard. And can I ask you a question? Because I'm
going to skip off, but it's lovely to meet you. Thank you.
Lovely to meet you too, Maggie.
Yeah. Whenever you stand in New York, what's the vibration under the feet thing? What is that about? I've never experienced that anywhere else in the world. Is it because of the underground or something? Is it?
I think so, probably. I think it's how everything is built, and so the underground and the cars up above. But yeah, probably.
Humbling.
Yeah. What has Dan also said? You have played on 2 albums of Jude Johnston.
Oh, Jude Johnston's one of our team. She's one of our mentors for the girls, for the Maggie's Farm Collective. So she teaches them songwriting. Yes, I've worked. That's the girl who I said earlier on, Cathy. She would say, "You're the shit." The girl's the shit. That song is the shit, baby.
Oh, I see. Right.
That's Jude. Yeah, Jude wrote. She wrote "Wounded Heart" or "Wounded Heart" is it for Bonnie Raitt, and she wrote.
I think I saw her. I went to see Bonnie Raitt in a beautiful kind of space, and I'm pretty sure it was Jude who opened for her, and her writing was outrageous. My wife
Maggie, who you just met there, co-wrote a song with Jude on her latest album, "Living Room."
Wow! Oh, Dan mentioned that
song. Maggie, sorry, what's it called? Serenita. Maggie co-wrote that with Jude, so that's nice. Yeah, it's a small. I keep saying it's a small world, everybody. And anybody who's commenting, like Dan Davila and Joyce Glasgow and Sandy Cummings, you're now part of my network. Please stay in touch.
Oh, that's so sweet. Hey, I have a funny question to ask you, but. So it's a question that I ask people sometimes, and I'm just curious. Have you ever had a setback in your life that kind of knocked you over for a minute? And if so, how did you get back up?
It's a great story. It's a great question. And I don't really know because I try not to dwell on negativity. I try to move on. As you can guess, I've been busy with all the things I've done. But I'll share something with you that not a lot of people know. I'm a hemophiliac. I don't know if that ever means anything to you or not, but I have a blood disorder. So it's a genetic disease, and my blood doesn't clot that well. So you'll have probably heard of a lot of people.
Like hemophilia, right?
Hemophilia.
Okay.
So it's not like it's been a setback, but it's impacted on my choices. So I'm a fanatical sports fan, and for some reason I need the lights on. For some reason I'm a fanatical contact sport guy. I don't know why. Rugby league, you've probably never heard of rugby league.
Sure.
I'm a rugby league and cricket, all the things that I'm really, really into. And if somebody said to me, what would your passion be outside music? It would be some of those contact sports, and I would love to have played them. I would love to have played them, but I couldn't play them. But it's not really a setback. It's actually probably been an advantage because I've been able to focus on things, that have been more important musically and things like that. So no, I don't really think, I try not to think about that. I kind of think that whether there's something that has a negative impact on you or not, you have to find a solution, and the solution always makes you stronger.
Yeah.
But I think it has to be about mentality. I think the most important thing that we have to do as humans is arrive. And the most important place that we have to arrive at is where we're at. There's a hero of mine who I know most of you would have heard of, and some of you may well be fans of. And I hope I don't get this wrong, but it's a tweet that he put out, and his name is Dr. John from New York.
Yeah, sure.
And I know I'm going to get this wrong, so please forgive me. But I think he said in his tweet, you're never too young, you're never too old, you're never too hot, you're never too cold, you're never too skinny, you're never too fat, you're just where you are. And that's where it's at. And I tell you what, guys, that's something to live your life by. The other thing which I think is really important for you to live your life by, because no matter who you are, you may not think you're in a position of power, but you're always in a position of power, whether it's a family member, whether it's a nephew or a niece or a child, or whether it's somebody you're educating, or whether it's somebody you're working to or working for. You're always in a position of power, because anything that you can do can have a positive or negative effect on somebody else. And if anything that you can do or say will have a positive or negative effect on somebody else, then that's really important. And there's a guy, and his name is Simon Sinek. And it's really funny because I did a PhD, leadership was a really big thing for me, and teamwork is a really big thing for me. And I had to try and identify things. And as a researcher, you're looking for things. And one of the things that I accidentally found out from Simon Sinek was a quote by him. And then whenever I was in a conversation like this, an academic conversation online a few years ago, I said, well, let me just look it up, because Simon Sinek, this is one of his big quotes. And there was a book called The Top 50 Quotes by Simon Sinek. And I thought,
oh my God.
Let's see guess what, guys? It wasn't in it. But I'll tell you what it is anyway. And it is, leadership isn't about being in charge. It's about taking care of those in your charge. Hard to beat. Great things to live your life by,
That's really a nice quote. Yeah, I love that.
So don't worry about setbacks. Just side slip and move on. And you're only, if you allow either external forces or other people or whatever to steal that energy from you, that's going to make you feel bad, then that's your fault anyway.
Yeah.
Because there's nobody that loves you as much as you. And if you don't love yourself, it's time to start right now.
Wow. That's cool. Thank you. Wow. So believe it or not, we've spoken almost 2 hours.
What?
Yes. I know people always say that. It's like, what? 2 hours? Gosh, I mean, I feel like I could talk to you forever, but you've said some really deep and wonderful things. And I'm very impressed with your fervor and your commitment and your sight. And it's really beautiful to talk to you. Thank you for
Thank you very much, Cathy. Thank you for what you're doing for our community, because you said earlier on you had your badge. Can I see your badge again? It just takes one human. Where's your badge?
My badge.
Because you are one human, and I hope I'm one human. But I want to let Sandy Cummings and Dan Davila and Joyce Glasgow and anybody that's connected with us tonight know that you are also one human, and you're part of our connection now, and we've made this connection. And part of the thing surely about humanity is once you make that connection, you don't want to drop that connection. So let's partner each other and let's motivate each other and let's make ourselves stronger, because as a team we will be stronger. So let's do that, and let's be that one human that changes the world in a little bit. That's enough to make a difference.
I couldn't have said it better myself, and I wouldn't even try. Thank you so much. And I'm just going to tell people that Thursday through Sunday I put up the archives, so you can always see one of our conversations. Josh Nelson is tomorrow. Great, wonderful pianist here, you would love, Linley. And Larry Kuntz and Otmaro Ruiz the next day, which also
Wow.
all these three guys are like the kings here of jazz playing. And then Saturday, Mark Winkler, who's a singer and lyricist, and Michelle Weir, who's a very internationally known educator and arranger for voice. Michelle Weir. And next week, pianist Ted Howe and Nicholas Beard are going to be live. So anytime anybody wants to see who's coming up, you can go to my website and see that. Linley,
anytime any of you are going to come to Ireland, whether it's you, Cathy, or any of the team who are watching, please look us up first, Maggie's Farm, MAGYSFARM.co.uk. We kind of run international gigs every 2 weeks. You can come and feed our donkeys as long as you buy some carrots and whatever on a loaf of bread. You can
I'm coming. I'm already planning it in my head.
Come on, come and stay with us and let's share the love.
Sounds like a beautiful gig, like the kind of gigs that I want lately, All right, thanks, Linley.
It's been a real honor to meet you, Cathy, and thank you so much.
Thank you. And I'm, obviously there's Linley's website, there's Maggie's Farm website. So I suspect a lot of people are going to be looking you guys up right now.
Thank you, everybody. God bless and take care.
Bye, Linley. Have a good night.
Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Cathy.
Bye.